And for the first time, I could see myself on camera, what I'd become. And it wasn't a pleasant sight, which then led into depression. So, you know, the 11.5 years where I served with distinction had just been totally rubbished by a film that showed such a horrific, you know, incident. I at the time was training recruits. Now, you don't go to train, they don't pick soldiers to go and train recruits if you're poor quality or you've got bad morals or bad judgment. I was an excellent soldier, and I can stand there and say that I served proud for my whole 11.5 years. And all my reports show that I was a caring soldier, and I would care for my troops. And if I took a section out, yeah, I would look after their men, and I would bring them home. I would do anything in my power. I put my life on the line to protect them. It's the way I've been brought up. I come from a very good family, and we all have very good morals and high standards. And I will, you know, I would try my best to bring up my children in that same way. And to be portrayed like that as a bad apple, as someone who was, you know, who vindictively went out to kill people, I didn't want to go out there and do a bad thing. I did what I could with the equipment that I had. And I got caught with my pants down with this incident, and I was basically thrown out of my job, which I really loved, and I just went on a downward spiral. From there, I wanted to kill myself and basically cut off any ties with my family, because my family were being hounded by the media. And I couldn't believe that the government, not the army, but the government, were throwing me in this position to do that, you know, and they were seriously throwing some bad stuff at me, and I was going to go to prison and all this. They spent about £3 million on the court-martial, and all those soldiers were totally, you know, we was all put in different regiments, told not to speak to the press, wasn't allowed to say our point of view. I just signed off. That was it. As far as I was concerned, I didn't want nothing more to do with the military. I got out, and then I had to rebuild. And I was very lucky and fortunate that my father took me under his wing and taught me a trade, because, I mean, all I'd done for 11.5 years was learn to kill people. So there's not many jobs in civilian life unless you're going to be a hitman to go and do, you know. So I'm completely out of touch with reality. I mean, I wanted to serve my full 22. I didn't have any reason to get out. And then all of a sudden, this whole journey that I began. I went to art school before I joined the military, so I suddenly had a way that I started painting, and then I started writing, and I'd never written before, and all this poetry started coming. And at this point, I hadn't heard from Lee Kamara, my friend who I used to play in a band with for years. And I just got this idea to do a documentary. I got offered off the BBC to do a documentary with a programme called Inside Out, a local programme in Cornwall, where we come from. And I turned it down because I felt that the story needed to be told by soldiers. There needed to be some sort of... And then I discovered on the internet this group of individuals, Richard Atkinson, Chris Rowe and Neil Cole. And these guys formed Shrine Productions, and we all paid for it ourselves. So I got £8,000 loan, and I'm still struggling to pay off now. And we basically... we went into it. We went into it hard at, and we just did guerrilla filmmaking. We went round, we filmed all the soldiers, and we went on this journey. At the same time, I was still writing the poetry. The guys were filming me, logging, reporting. I then went off and started to compile a list of soldiers that we could interview. We interviewed them, and I, for some unknown reason, got hold of Lee Kamara's number, rung him up, said, look, we're doing this film, do you want to come in and form the band back up? So we formed the band. We started writing songs, poetry about our experiences from war, and it just developed from then. Then we came up with an idea for a rock concert we did in Cornwall in June last year, called the Voices of War concert. We got the full band back together, and we was trying to turning a negative into a positive. So we started raising money for the Royal British Legion. At the time, I didn't see myself as suffering with PTSD. That sort of came as a real big shock to me, because I always felt like that I was a strong character, and being a military stance, I'm not going to suffer. We used to call it basket weaving cases. If you in any way went mad, you went on a basket weaving course, and it refers to the First World War when people suffered from battle shock, and you was almost called as weak for like admitting to have PTSD. Because I put so much into what I was trying to show what had gone wrong and repair the damage that had done from the Iraq beating film, which is pretty hard to do when you're in the situation I was in. Marriage fell apart, ended up being homeless, and because my mum and dad didn't know that I was homeless. It's a pride thing, and I think you'll agree with me on this, that, you know, you're a soldier, you don't want to admit that you've screwed up. You know, I had at one point I had a house in Spain, a house in England, I had my own bought car, and then all of a sudden I had nothing, and it was all taken away from me, and I was like, what if I, you know, everything had just gone wrong, and I just thought, God, I've got to change, I've got to try and I was changing. It was just PTSD is a form of purging out all the demons in your system, and I call it like the quickening off Highlander film. You're going through the quickening, and it's almost, you should be proud that you've got PTSD, not that you're questioning what had happened. And there is a way forward. You will get through it. And like, there's a guy I met yesterday that I can see he's what I was like a year ago, and I'm now getting my confidence back, building on my life. You know, I've got so many plans for the future, and I'm feeling positive again. And, you know, there are, like, organisations like you guys are doing, and there's groups out there like the British Legion that do phenomenal work for veterans in the UK, combat stress. I mean, all these guys have all got to watch what they say, but the great thing about Voices of War is we can say a little bit more than what they can. And we understand that the military are doing what they're doing, and we might not all agree with it, but those soldiers, we can't blame the soldiers. Soldiers have got to wake up in their own time. A lot of them are trapped within a military system with a pension or anything like that, and they've got families to feed. And this is the thing, you know, the government are playing on that. And my mission now with Voices of War is to go to the government, look, what you're spending at the moment on veterans with PTSD is abysmal. You know, it's almost a joke. I mean, these men serve for their country. They fight for their country and their queen, and they're the most honourable men you ever meet. I mean, these guys will buy you a drink in a pub. They'll fight to the death for you. And to just go, we're going to offset 42.5 million is what they've offset. I've got a letter from Kevin Jones, who's the defence guy in charge of... just get his right credentials. Don't want to mess that up. His name is Kevin Jones, and he is the Secretary of Defence. And he sent me a letter. I mean, he reckons he set off 42.5 million. Well, I've got also a figure here for what they're spending at the moment on alcohol abuse and drug abuse in the country, and it's up to 300 million. I mean, that's self-inflicted. I'm not trying to... Yeah, OK. That's self-inflicted. And these guys that are coming out of the army are basically... have served for their country, and now it's all... Sorry, I'm thrown by that. But my point is, if you're going to have these wars, then you offset the money to repair the damage on the soldiers that are damaged. And Voices of War now, we're going to raise money for the guys that are coming out that are suffering. We're going to produce songs. We've got an event on the 5th and 6th of September in Cornwall, in Hale Beach, being run by a guy called Chris Emerson, and it's going to be called Operation Amped. And we've nicked that idea off the Americans, Operation Amped. 5th and 6th of September, Voices of War are going to be helping with that, and we're just going to try and develop and work with you guys and do whatever we can. But please enjoy the music later. Keep positive, keep smiling, and, you know, life goes on. And thank you so much for inviting us down here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. No, I'm fine.